Cale Draven had learned long ago that peace was a fragile thing. He lived in the upper levels of Nova Haven, where the city's lights never dimmed and the hum of engines never stopped. The orbital city was a labyrinth of steel towers, glass corridors, and floating platforms. To outsiders, it looked alive, vibrant, almost welcoming. But Cale saw the shadows between the lights, the corners where people fell through the cracks. He had once fallen through those cracks himself, and he never wanted to go back. Since the day he had taken 8 bullets for a child, Cale had avoided attention. The world called him the Shield now, a legend whispered among mercenaries and smugglers alike, though he had never sought fame. Fame, he knew, brought danger. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered the screams, the fire, the desperate weight of a child pressed against his chest as metal tore into his flesh. He remembered the taste of blood and the smell of smoke. He remembered survival. He had survived. Now Cale worked as a medic. His small clinic was tucked away in a quieter section of the city, where the rich rarely visited and the poor came seeking treatment and advice. He preferred it that way. His days were filled with the ordinary, cleaning wounds, patching fractures, handing out medications, and quietly listening to people's stories. In the rhythm of healing others, Cale found a type of solace. But the universe had a way of reminding him that the past was never done with him. The day began like any other. Cale was arranging supplies when a faint vibration ran through the floor. At first, he thought it was the city's engines. Then he heard the sound of a ship docking nearby. Nova Haven had countless landing pads, but there was something about this one that made Cale uneasy. He stepped outside. A sleek ship hovered silently above the platform, its surface black and reflective, almost like liquid metal. There was no landing ramp deployed, no signal of communication. And yet Cale knew without thinking that the ship was here for him. The door opened, sliding smoothly without a sound. And there she was, Vera Sorn. The name alone was enough to stop the hearts of men and women who had faced her. Known across star systems as the deadliest bounty hunter alive, she had a reputation that made criminals surrender before she even drew her weapon. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, and unyielding. She didn't smile, she didn't need to. Every movement, every gesture told Cale that she had come prepared for a confrontation. Cale felt a strange calm. He had faced death before. He had survived impossible odds before. And somehow he knew that this encounter would be no different, even if it was unlike anything he had faced. "Cale Draven," her voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like a blade. "I've been looking for you." Cale studied her, measuring the distance between them. "I'm not who you think I am," he said, but even as the words left his lips, he knew they were useless. Legends had a way of following you, no matter how far you ran. Vera's gaze didn't waver. "I know exactly who you are, and I know what you did. That's why I'm here." He frowned, uncertain. Most who came after him were mercenaries, thieves, or people who wanted a bounty. None of them spoke his name like a challenge, like a recognition of what he had survived. "You've survived," she said, "when no one should have. And for that, they want to see you gone." Cale's pulse quickened. "Who?" he asked, though he already had a feeling. The galaxy's underworld was not forgiving, and surviving against impossible odds often made you a target. "A syndicate," she replied. "A group that values profit more than life. They've placed a bounty on you, Cale. They've watched you, studied you, and now they've decided you're a threat." Cale nodded slowly. The truth was bitter but simple. Survival had its price, and he had already paid it with blood before, but something in Vera's presence unnerved him. She wasn't here to collect a bounty. She was here to test him. "Why are you telling me this?" Cale asked. "Because," she said, her voice even, "you're not like the others. Humans are unpredictable. You've proven it before. I want to see if you can prove it again." The calm in her voice carried a dangerous promise. Cale understood immediately. She wasn't here to negotiate. She was here to observe, to challenge, to see if he could survive the impossible once more. The next hours were a blur. Cale prepared, gathering supplies, checking weapons he hadn't touched in years. He fortified his clinic, not out of fear for himself, but for those who would be caught in the crossfire. When the syndicate's first wave arrived, a squad of heavily armed mercenaries, Cale was ready. The battle was chaotic, but Cale's mind was sharp. He moved through the corridors with precision, using the environment to his advantage. Traps that the mercenaries had not expected forced them to retreat or surrender. He wasn't the fastest, or the strongest, or the most heavily armed, but he was clever. He was human. And humanity, Cale realized, had a strength that no weapon could measure. Vera watched silently from a distance, analyzing every move. There was respect in her gaze, but also a challenge. She wanted to see how far he could push the limits. She had seen humans before, but never one like him. Kale wasn't just surviving, he was outthinking, outmaneuvering, and above all, protecting those who could not protect themselves. By nightfall, the syndicate had withdrawn, leaving behind only whispers of disbelief. Kale's body ached, but his resolve had never been stronger. He understood something crucial: survival was not enough. To protect the innocent, to prove the worth of humanity in a galaxy that underestimated them, he had to do more. Vera approached him as the first lights of dawn began to reflect off the city's glass towers. "You've survived," she said, her voice carrying the weight of observation and judgment. "And you've done it in a way I did not expect. Most humans would have failed." Kale looked at her, and for the first time he allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I don't fail," he said simply. She nodded, as if confirming a hypothesis. "No, you don't, but the galaxy is vast, and they will not wait long to try again. I will return. And when I do, you must be ready not just to survive, but to show them why humans are not to be underestimated." With that, she left, stepping back into her ship, which disappeared as silently as it had arrived. Kale stood alone, the city stretching endlessly around him. He felt the weight of what was coming, but he also felt something else: hope. Not just for himself, but for humanity. If he could survive this, if he could prove that a human mind and heart could overcome impossible odds, then maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would see them as more than prey. Kale returned to his clinic, tending to those wounded in the skirmish. Each person he helped was a reminder that life was precious, and that protecting it required more than courage. It required ingenuity, compassion, and resolve. And as he worked, he made a silent promise to himself: no matter what came next, he would be ready. The galaxy might send its deadliest warriors, its most cunning enemies, but Kale Draven had already faced the impossible. And he had survived. For Kale, the past was a shadow, but it was also a weapon. And soon the galaxy would learn that humans were not weak. They were resilient, unpredictable, dangerous in ways that could not be measured by guns, bombs, or fleets. The story of Kale the Shield had only just begun. The city of Nova Haven was quiet after the skirmish, but the calm was fragile. Kale Draven knew that the Syndicate would not give up so easily. They had seen him survive, and in their world, survival was a threat they could not ignore. Kale moved through the streets carefully, keeping an eye on the shadows. Every passerby, every flickering light seemed like a possible threat. But he also knew that fear could not control him. Vera Sorn had said she would return. Kale expected her, but he did not expect what would happen next. The Syndicate's response came swiftly. Their agents were everywhere, in the markets and the transport stations, even in the towering apartments above the city. They were searching for him, tracking him, testing the limits of his endurance. Kale prepared. He moved through the narrow corridors of his clinic, gathering supplies, making small traps and diversions to slow anyone who followed. Every step he took was deliberate. He was no longer just a medic, he was a strategist. Every corner he turned, every stair he climbed, became part of a carefully constructed plan. He reached the edge of the city, where the platforms stretched into open space. From here, he could observe movement without being easily seen. The Syndicate's scouts moved in patterns, predictable if you paid attention. Kale had learned to watch humans and machines alike, to notice how they moved, how they hesitated. Patterns revealed weakness, and weakness could be exploited. The first encounter came at dusk. A small team of enforcers moved toward his hiding place, weapons trained and ready. Kale waited, breathing slowly, his mind racing. When they stepped into the corridor he had prepared, the floor beneath them gave way slightly, sending them stumbling into a controlled pit. It was harmless, but enough to disorient them. Kale didn't need to fight, he only needed to outthink. Vera watched from a distance, as she had promised. She made no move, only observed, noting Kale's choices. Her expression was unreadable, but Kale felt her judgment. Every action he took, every decision, was under her scrutiny. He realized that this was more than survival. It was a test of human ingenuity, of courage, of adaptability. Over the next hours, Kale moved through the city like a shadow. He avoided the main streets, used maintenance tunnels, and created false trails. Whenever the Syndicate agents approached, he used small tools, simple tricks, and keen observation to mislead them. A leaking pipe here, A shifted crate there, and the mercenaries found themselves trapped or confused, unable to follow him accurately. But it was not only cleverness that kept him alive. Kale's humanity, the compassion he showed to those around him, was also a weapon. In one alley, he found a group of children trapped by debris from a collapsed building. The Syndicate's scouts were approaching, unaware of the civilians. Without hesitation, Kale pulled the rubble aside, guiding the children to safety. He spoke to them gently, keeping their fear at bay while using their knowledge of the alleyways to create more obstacles for the pursuers. By the time the Syndicate realized what had happened, Kale was already gone. The children were safe, and the hunters were left frustrated and confused. In this moment, Vera's eyes softened slightly. She had expected a human to be clever, to be cunning, but she had not expected a human to care so deeply for others while surviving against impossible odds. Kale's next challenge was not just the Syndicate, but the city itself. Nova Haven was a living organism of steel and light, with hazards everywhere. Platforms shifted, machinery whirred, and automated security systems monitored every movement. Kale used all of it to his advantage. He rerouted security bots to block corridors, timed moving platforms to confuse his pursuers, and even used the city's own lights and shadows to hide from detection. The night deepened, and the hunt intensified. Kale knew the Syndicate's next move would be more dangerous. They were not just testing his survival, they were pushing him to the limit, hoping to catch a human unprepared. But Kale was always ready. He moved with precision, calculated every step, and trusted his instincts. Humans had a quality that machines and mercenaries lacked: adaptability. They could change plans on the fly, learn quickly, and survive in ways no algorithm could predict. In the city's central plaza, Kale set his final trap for the night. Using a combination of lights, sound, and movement, he created the illusion of multiple Kales moving through the streets at once. The Syndicate's agents followed false trails, colliding with each other and losing coordination. Kale remained hidden, observing with satisfaction as the hunters stumbled into chaos. When the last mercenary fell into a harmless trap, Kale allowed himself a brief rest. He leaned against a wall, breathing heavily, feeling the weight of exhaustion. But he also felt a sense of accomplishment. He had survived the night, protected innocence, and demonstrated a human quality that no machine or Syndicate could replicate. Resilience, ingenuity, and compassion, these were the tools of his survival. Vera approached as dawn broke over the city. Her ship had landed quietly, as always, but this time she walked beside him rather than observing from a distance. "You've done well," she said, her voice low but sincere. "Most humans would have failed. They would have panicked or fled or been trapped, but you," she paused, studying him, "you adapted, you survived, and more than that, you protected others while doing it. That is rare." Kale nodded, still catching his breath. "I didn't survive for myself," he said simply. "I survived for those who couldn't survive without me. That's the difference." Vera's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. The galaxy does not see humans that way. They see weakness, fragility, expendability, but you are proving them wrong. Kale looked at her, his expression calm but determined. "Then let them watch. They will see what humans are capable of. They will learn that survival is not just about weapons or power. It's about heart, mind, and courage." For the rest of the day, Kale and Vera moved through the city together, not as enemies, but as observers of each other's skills. She tested him with challenges, forcing him to think quickly, make decisions under pressure, and demonstrate creativity. Every obstacle Kale overcame was a reminder of why humanity could never be underestimated. As night fell again, Kale realized that this test was far from over. The Syndicate would return, stronger and more determined. But he also understood something crucial. He was no longer alone in proving humanity's worth. Vera, the galaxy's deadliest hunter, had seen it firsthand. She would carry the knowledge of what a human could achieve into the wider galaxy, and that was a kind of victory in itself. The city lights reflected in Kale's eyes as he prepared for the next day. He had survived impossible odds, protected the innocent, and outwitted deadly enemies. And he had done it not through brute force, but through intelligence, courage, and heart. The legend of Kale, the Shield, was growing, and with it, the proof that humans were more than the galaxy's predators expected. They were adaptable, resilient, and capable of shaping events in ways that others could not foresee. And the galaxy was about to learn, if it had not already, that underestimating humans was a mistake they could not afford to make. Kale sat quietly as the first light of the orbital dawn broke across the skyline. He thought about the child he had once saved, about the people he had protected tonight, and about the challenges still to come. He was ready. The galaxy would come for him again, and he would meet it head-on, not as a victim, not as a legend, but as a human capable of remarkable things. And when it did, he would survive. Again, Kale Draven had learned to expect the unexpected, but nothing in his past had prepared him for what came next. The Syndicate was no longer testing him. They were coming for everything he valued, the city, its people, and perhaps even the fragile peace he had carved for himself. Nova Haven was their stage now, and Kale was the one performer they wanted eliminated. He moved through the city's rooftops, a silent shadow under the dim glow of orbital lights. Every corner, every platform, every stairwell was familiar. He had mapped them in his mind, not just as a survivor, but as someone who could turn the city itself into an ally. And Kale knew that this time he would need more than clever traps and diversions. He would need strategy, precision, and above all, calm. Vera Sorn had returned as she had promised. Her ship descended silently, and she stood at the edge of a platform watching Kale with the same intensity she always did. But this time her presence carried no threat. Instead, it felt like acknowledgement, almost respect. She had seen what humans were capable of, and now she would witness what Kale could do under true pressure. "They're coming for you," she said quietly, her voice carrying over the hum of the city. "And this time they won't hesitate, but you have a choice. You can survive, or you can show them why humans should never be underestimated." Kale nodded. He understood. Survival alone would not be enough. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, seeing them as fragile and expendable. Kale's task now was not just to survive, but to prove the value of humanity itself, not through weapons or fear, but through ingenuity, courage, and resolve. The first wave arrived before midnight. He had prepared for them, channeling the chaos into controlled zones of his own design. Platforms shifted, lights flickered, and automated security systems moved according to his calculations. The Syndicate's agents expected a simple hunt, but Kale had turned Nova Haven into a maze of traps, false corridors, and clever distractions. They fell into his plans one by one, but Kale did not delight in their confusion. He moved with purpose, neutralizing threats without harm whenever possible. He guided civilians out of danger, gave them instructions, and ensured that no innocent life was lost. Humanity's strength, he realized, lay not only in survival, but in protecting others while facing impossible odds. Vera observed silently, her expression unreadable. She had faced thousands of deadly beings across the galaxy, yet Kale's calm, his precision, and his moral courage fascinated her. Most humans would panic under pressure. Most humans would abandon the weak to save themselves. Kale did neither. He adapted, improvised, and led, all while maintaining his humanity. The Syndicate escalated their attack. Drones and enforcers moved in tighter formations, forcing Kale to make split-second decisions. He rerouted automated defenses, timed moving platforms to block paths, and used environmental hazards to slow his pursuers. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. He was not just surviving, he was orchestrating an outcome that the Syndicate could not anticipate. In the midst of this chaos, Kale encountered the Syndicate's elite enforcer, a towering figure clad in advanced armor. The enforcer moved with speed and precision, and Kale realized that a direct confrontation would be fatal. Instead, he relied on strategy. Using mirrors and shadows, he created the illusion of multiple Kales moving through the corridors. The enforcer attacked the illusions, wasting energy and focus, while Kale slipped past, guiding the remaining civilians to safety. Hours passed in a blur of motion, calculation, and quiet determination. Kale's mind worked faster than any machine, anticipating movements, predicting outcomes, and adapting to unexpected challenges. He felt exhaustion creeping in, but he pushed it aside. The people of Nova Haven, the children he had saved, the innocents in the city, they were counting on him. Humanity's survival was not just a personal matter, it was a responsibility. Finally, Kale reached the central platform of the city, where the Syndicate had gathered their remaining forces. The platform overlooked the city's heart, a vast space of lights and steel. Kale took a deep breath. This was it, the final confrontation. Vera stepped beside him, her expression serious but not hostile. "This is your moment," she said. Show them why humans are dangerous, not because of weapons, but because of what they can do with their minds and hearts. You have survived what no one else could. Now prove that survival is not enough." Kale nodded. He activated the city's automated systems, rerouting lights, sounds, and platforms to create a maze that only he could navigate. The Syndicate's agents moved forward, unaware that every step they took was leading them into Kale's design. They were intelligent, trained killers, but they were predictable in ways that Kale had already calculated. The elite enforcer returned, furious at being outmaneuvered. Kale faced him without fear. "You cannot stop what you do not understand," he said calmly. He used the environment to create obstacles, forcing the enforcer into tight spaces where speed and armor became disadvantages. The enforcer's attacks were precise, but Kale's adaptability and creativity allowed him to neutralize the threat without direct combat. As the Syndicate struggled, Kale's plan unfolded. Drones collided, agents became trapped in harmless but effective snares, and the civilians were evacuated safely. Kale moved through the chaos like a conductor, orchestrating every motion with careful precision. Every obstacle, every trap, every movement demonstrated the power of human ingenuity. Vera watched, impressed. She had faced the galaxy's most dangerous beings, but Kale's approach was different. It was not fear that drove him, not brute force, but intelligence, courage, and a deep commitment to protect others. Humanity, she realized, was not fragile. It was resilient, unpredictable, and capable of shaping events in ways that others could not imagine. When the final Syndicate members realized their defeat, Kale stood at the center of the platform, calm, composed, and unbroken. No innocent had been harmed, and the Syndicate's forces had been neutralized without unnecessary violence. Kale had won not by killing, but by outthinking, outmaneuvering, and outlasting them. Vera approached him, her eyes reflecting the lights of the city. "You have done what I thought impossible," she said. "Most humans would have failed. But you have proven that humanity cannot be underestimated." Kale looked at her, his expression steady. "It's not about strength or weapons," he said. "It's about heart, mind, and courage. That is what makes humans dangerous. That is what makes us capable of survival and of protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Vera nodded slowly, a rare smile touching her lips. "The galaxy may not understand yet, but they will. Humans are no longer to be seen as weak. You have shown that, Kale Draven." The dawn of a new day broke over Nova Haven, and Kale felt a sense of quiet triumph. He had survived impossible odds, protected the innocent, and demonstrated the true power of humanity. The legend of Kale, the Shield, was no longer just a rumor. It was a reality that would echo across the galaxy. And as he looked at the rising sun through the city's glass towers, Kale knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would continue to test humanity, but they would face the truth. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary things. They were unpredictable, clever, and courageous beyond measure. Kale smiled faintly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the promise of the future. The galaxy might send its deadliest hunters, its most cunning adversaries, and its most powerful enemies, but humanity would survive and it would thrive. Vera departed silently, her ship disappearing into the light of the orbital dawn. Kale stood alone, but he was not lonely. He carried the knowledge that he had proven something greater than himself, that humans were capable of shaping their destiny, protecting the innocent, and surviving the impossible. The story of Kale, the Shield, was complete, for now, but the story of humanity was just beginning. Across the stars, whispers of human courage, ingenuity, and resilience would grow. They would be underestimated no longer. Kale turned back toward the city, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. He knew that survival was not enough. To prove humanity's worth, he would continue to act with intelligence, courage, and heart. Every decision, every action, every life saved was a statement. Humans were special, and the galaxy had better take notice. The city hummed around him, alive and vast, but Kale felt a quiet confidence. He had faced impossible odds and won, not by brute force, but by proving the value of being human. And that, he knew, was a power no one could take away. The galaxy had learned a lesson that night. Kale Draven had survived. Humanity had prevailed, and the stars would never underestimate them again.